Hello everybody, and thank you for joining on this Gradcracker webinar with Caterpillar. I would firstly like to introduce the Gradcracker members of the panel. So my name's Carla, a director at Gradcracker, and I have worked with Lauren and Caterpillar for a number of years. Caterpillar advertise their degree apprenticeships, placements and graduate opportunities on Gradcracker. The placements and graduate opportunities are now open, with the degree apprenticeships opening early next year. Sophie?
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie, also a director at Gradcracker, and my role is really similar to Carla's in that I look after a lot of the employers who advertise on Gradcracker, and I will be helping Carla on the Caterpillar webinar today.
Perfect, thank you, Seth. I am so excited about this webinar, by the way, everybody. So it's going to be an ace. So during this webinar, our aim is to find out a little bit more about Caterpillar. So we will talk about who they are, what they do, and also the opportunities our STEM students can apply for this year on Gradcracker. Starting with our contact, Lauren, from the Early Careers team, will have an introduction to the business and also their opportunities. We will then speak to placement student Sasha and graduates Sadia and Shreya about what life is like for them, what projects they have worked on, if they're involved in any networking groups, and what training and development they have received so far, and also their future plans. We will then end the webinar by discussing the recruitment process. And during this part of the webinar, the students will also give you an insight about how they used Gradcracker to apply to Caterpillar and how and why they have been so successful, which they definitely have. If you have attended any of the webinars so far this year, you'll know that we've got a new feature that you can submit your questions for us to ask the panel during the webinar. So we will feature some of those questions from you, our students, a little bit later on. So let's get started and meet Caterpillar. So Lauren, we have students from two areas of the business, Perkins and Caterpillar. Can you tell me a little bit more about both businesses?
Of course. So Caterpillar is the world's leading manufacturer of construction and mining equipment. We also produce diesel and gas engines, gas turbines and diesel electric locomotives. So in simpler terms, the large yellow machines and trucks that you see on the sides of roads and in construction sites, like Colin's pointing out. So we have a vast range of products as well that we do, as well as those machines. So we've been operating for just short of 100 years, so it's coming up to our 100-year anniversary. And our main aim is to help our customers build a better and a more sustainable world. We are a global organisation, but we do have a large footprint in the UK as well, with around 10,000 full-time employees. We have 24 locations in the UK, and 13 of those are manufacturing facilities. So in terms of the split between the Caterpillar brand and the Perkins brand, like Carla just touched on, so Caterpillar has a portfolio of brands that sit underneath the Caterpillar umbrella brand, and Perkins is one of those subsidiary brands. We manufacture diesel and gas engines, and they happen to be our largest manufacturing facility in the UK, based in Peterborough, and we also have a Perkins site at Stafford as well. So whilst we go to market as Caterpillar, and you will see all of our early talent roles advertised as Caterpillar, there will be some schemes within that you will sit directly within the Perkins brand subsidiary. So that's for our sites in Peterborough and in Stafford.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that introduction, Lauren. And before we go on and speak to you about the different opportunities that you've got available on the hub on Gradcracker. So far, like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, your placements are live. So at the moment, you've got 39 12-month placements currently advertised, all with a deadline of the 1st of December. So students who are watching, make sure you get your applications in. It isn't 39 opportunities, it's 39 positions where you are accepting more than one student. So there's lots and lots of opportunities open to you. And you've also got 19 graduate opportunities currently advertised on our site as well, with a closing date of the 17th of November. So there's just some dates for you all to know about, and I will flag those again towards the end of the webinar. But Lauren, give the students who are watching a bit of a flavour about what those opportunities are.
Yeah, so just to kind of expand on what Carla mentioned, so those are the number of adverts that we have advertised, but just to put it into perspective, we have around over 150 early talent opportunities across the UK to start in 2025. So they're broken down into 12-month industrial placement schemes and 2-year graduate programs. So the 12-month industrial placement scheme is for students in their penultimate year of study, or if you're on a 4-year integrated master's program, you can either be in your 2nd or your 3rd year. And they're essentially for students who take a gap out of their studies and get some experience within their chosen sector. And then we have our graduate programs. They are a 2-year program, but upon completion of the graduate scheme, you would move into a permanent position. And therefore students that graduate next year, but we also do take students that have graduated from previous years as well. So we do predominantly recruit mainly from engineering and STEM disciplines, but we also have roles available in other business type functions such as supply chain, marketing and HR, for example. So like I touched on earlier, there is that differentiation in brand between Caterpillar and Perkins. So some of our roles are directly product related, so you'll be supporting in the manufacturing of the actual products and machines. And then some of our roles are based within Perkins, so you'll be working alongside more of the engines that go into the machines. In terms of engineering disciplines, we pretty much accept every area of engineering. Just to name a few, we have roles in manufacturing, design, testing, simulation, analytics, electronification. So we pretty much cover every area. So I'd be pretty certain to say there's a role out there for you, depending on what you're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. So those students who are watching this webinar today, whether you're looking for a placement or you're looking for your graduate opportunity, there's something for everybody. There is a location for everybody out there at Caterpillar as well. So make sure after this webinar, you go and have a look and find out a little bit more. And so Lauren, just sticking with you, you mentioned when you did an introduction to Caterpillar and Perkins about the different locations. Are the roles hybrid? Is it a little bit working from home, a little bit working on site?
So I would say that totally depends on the role that you're interested in. We do have a global requirement across Caterpillar where we are required to be based on site for 60% of our working week, and then the remaining 40% can be work from home. But like I said, there will be certain roles that require you to be based on site more than that, just to make sure that you're kind of with your colleagues and you're there being able to see the product should you need to be. So it just totally depends on the role that you're interested in. But what I would say is that Caterpillar does aim to provide flexible working opportunities wherever we possibly can. So that would just be an agreement between you and your manager.
Perfect. And last question from me would be, if a student wants to apply to more than one opportunity, is that okay? Or do they really need to concentrate on just the one opportunity?
So I'd say if there was maybe 2 or 3 roles that you're really interested in, you like the sound of them, then definitely. But we do encourage students just to apply for one position, and we, as in the early talent recruitment team, can then go in and see what other roles that you'd be eligible for as well. So try to keep it specific and apply for the role that you're most interested in.
Fantastic. I lied to you, Lauren. I do have one more question. Don't do it yourself just yet. You knew this was going to happen. It's me. So at the end of the placement, if the student enjoys the placement, you enjoy the student being at Caterpillar or Perkins, does that kind of fast track them onto the graduate program? Is that how that works?
So we do try and do that talent pipelining wherever possible. So like you said, Carla, if you have a successful year with us, you want to return to the business after you've graduated, we do try to make conditional offers to those successful placement students to return on the graduate scheme. That was something that happened with myself. So I started off as a placement student, not an engineer, but within the HR function. And then after I graduated, I returned within a recruitment role. So we do try to do that as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I remember when you were a placement student, Lauren. Oh, all those
Back
years
in the
ago.
day.
Back in the day. Back in the day, love, back in the day. Perfect. Thank you very much, Lauren, for that insight into Caterpillar so far. So what we're going to do now is hand over to Sophie, and Sophie's going to speak to the rest of the panel, and I'll come back to you, Lauren, towards the end of the webinar to talk a little bit more about the recruitment process, hints and tips and everything else. So Sophie, over to you. So we're going to speak to the students now who all found their jobs through Gradcracker and watched webinar last year. Sophie.
Thank you very much, Carla. I'm actually going to ask Lauren one last question before we move on. Sorry, throwing a curveball in there.
Just trying to have a glass of water.
I know. She's thinking I'm done here, but no. So, Lauren, you talked about obviously Caterpillar and Perkins and roles being available within those two different businesses. Are there other businesses within Caterpillar that you recruit into for graduates and placements, or is it just those two main businesses?
So within the UK, it is just those two main businesses. But like I said, Caterpillar does have a portfolio of brands like Progress Rail, that we do have early talent schemes available in, but they're kind of outside the UK. So for UK, it is just Caterpillar and Perkins Engines.
Perfect. I thought that might be the case, but I thought I'd better double check before we moved on. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. I am going to come over to our graduates and placements now. So, Sadia, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to start with you. So you've had a little bit of a different journey to the start of your career. So you initially studied mechanical engineering at Sheffield Hallam, then went to work as a mechanical engineer, but decided to change careers, and you are now a sales and marketing graduate trainee at Perkins. Yep. And you started with Perkins in 2023. So can you tell us all about that and kind of the start to your career?
Yeah, thank you so much for handing over. So initially started off in an engineering role because I thought might as well see what that looks like having done an engineering degree. And I think as I was going through the graduate scheme, it wasn't necessarily aligning with what worked best for me. I liked working with engineering principles, but I wanted something more people-based and something where I got to do a bit more talking. And then I discovered I was still looking at graduate schemes on Gradcracker when I was taking a look at the options. And then I saw Caterpillar had an opening, or Perkins, and it's based in Peterborough where I live. So I thought, perfect, I can move home. And then I applied for the role, and it was a really great process because I was able to join the grad scheme. They offered me the role, but they also managed to incorporate technical aspects to the role to keep it as engineering aligned as possible whilst honing in on sales and marketing at the same time.
Wow. Okay. So that's a great story to tell, that, starting your career, you've done a mechanical engineering degree, thought that's going to be the right route for me. But actually, after trying it out and thinking, I want to use my skills elsewhere, but you still want to stay in the industry, and you've been able to really successfully do that. And I think that's a really great message for our audience, that, just because you start down one career path, now that you've got those skills already, there's so many different areas and different businesses that you'd be able to go into. So just because you start in one area doesn't mean that you aren't able to kind of change. And I'm sure that's something that you'd be able to accommodate within Caterpillar anyway, if you did kind of start in one area. But it's an interesting journey, not something that we hear all the time, Sadia. So thank you very much for the introduction there. Could you tell me a little bit more about what you've done so far as a sales and marketing trainee at Perkins?
Yeah, so it's a role where we have 4 rotations, and I've currently completed 2 of my rotations. And the first one was working in a team called the Advanced Power Team. So that was focusing on things to do with like future fuels and just advanced technology. And that was really cool. I looked into batteries, etc. And then I did another rotation in a team called Product Marketing. So that was looking at competitive analysis studies and taking a look at what products we have to offer and how that works against competitors, etc. And then I have 2 more rotations after I come back from this trip.
Which we will come on to shortly. No, thank you very much for that introduction. It sounds like a really interesting start to the scheme, and we'll come back and talk about a little bit more detail about what you've been doing and what future plans look like as well. But I'm going to shoot over to you, Shreya. Now, there was a little bit of feedback coming from your microphone earlier, so let's just test and see whether that's gone. If you can unmute yourself before, and then we might have to move on to Sasha if it's still going.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Okay, great. So Shreya, can you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Brilliant. I'm a very interesting person.
You are.
She is.
We try. So I was born in India, raised in India, then moved to the UK in 2018, where I joined Loughborough University on a degree program called Product Design Engineering. And in fact, when I was in high school, I actively didn't want to be an engineer. I did love to make things though. Like I was always opening everything I could find with a screwdriver. Like I would rip off like old watches or whatever.
I bet your parents loved that.
Yeah, trust me. And I did remember in high school, a friend of mine told me, "Oh, what you're describing is what an engineer does." But I had such a mental block against the whole concept of engineering, and that's the nerdy bit. Although to be honest, I think I'm a big nerd at heart. To answer your question, currently I've just finished the grad scheme at Caterpillar.
So what made you change your mind and decide to do engineering then?
Okay, now I secured a couple of scholarships. So at Loughborough University, in the product design engineering degree program, I studied very hard. So I didn't do A levels. I did the Indian equivalent of it, so just the ISC, and I got the 25% international student scholarship, and then I got another student financial aid from some other person. So after the financial side was sorted, I didn't want to let go of that opportunity. And because it was product design engineering, and I did tell my parents that only if I get into that particular degree program will I move abroad. Otherwise, I won't. And at the same time in India, I was preparing for the Indian engineering entrance exams and also the design entrance exam. So I had two career paths. One was either going into product design or industrial design or engineering. But ever since I started doing product design, I realized I loved it. It's like this is my dream. Like, oh my God, like imagine having the tools to build something cool. Who doesn't want that? You know?
Oh, that's
So yeah.
amazing. So it's
Yeah.
all worked out for the best then.
Yeah. And from what Sadia said, like I feel careers or as human beings we evolve time. So when I was doing my degree program at a placement year, and over the placement year, I realized that design engineering is exactly what I want to do. So I pursued that forward. And I realized I was really strong on my technical side, was really, really strong. So I realized, okay, if my technical side is strong, mechanical engineering might be the place.
And we're going to come back to talk to you about your placement years actually in a moment and sort of talk about how that's aided you in your career. But you've just completed the graduate scheme at Caterpillar. So you've just kind of completed your 2 years. So can you tell us a little bit more about the graduate scheme you're on and kind of how that worked?
Absolutely. My graduate scheme has been a bit of an outlier. So I joined Caterpillar Peterlee, which is in the northeast of England, and I was the first grad after perhaps 3 or 4 years. So when I joined, there wasn't really a very formal structure in place because I was the first grad after many years. However, in Sadia's case, or if you go to Caterpillar Peterborough, you have 4 rotations, you've got a graduate manager. So because I didn't have it, I used that to my advantage. And I sat down with my manager and I was very keen on getting different rotations. And I ended up doing 7 different rotations. And it was the best thing I ever did because I got experience in design teams, supply chain, quality engineering, manufacturing engineering, shop floor. Like I was on the shop floor for 2 weeks during Christmas 2022 with the overalls because I wanted to meet the people on like the operators, and also spent a couple of time getting involved with the YP and just getting involved with the business. So yeah, so it's very fruitful 2 years.
Okay, so you've experienced basically all aspects of the business from what you've said. And so now, what are you doing now that you've kind of completed the grad scheme? What's your kind of full-time role now?
So my full-time role is I am currently officially called a design engineer. However, I am based in the machine integration team. So machine integration team sits on top of the systems team. So when I say systems, I mean electrical engineers, hydraulic engineers, software engineers. So the machine integration team formulates all the different requirements. Say, for example, your phone. So if I were the machine integration team of your Apple iPhone, I would say, how much battery do you need? How long does the customer want? So it's like linking the business, sales, marketing, and translating the customer requirements into business requirements and feeding that into the systems team. So I'm in that middle region.
Wow. So you get access to lots of people then during that current role.
Yeah.
And was that one of the placements or one of the rotations that you did on the grad scheme in that particular division as well? Or is this something completely new that you rolled off into?
Completely new, something I completely rolled off into. I guess my manager who hired me was in that team. And because I was reporting to him, I ended up directly reporting to him, which I'm not fast because at my age or at the stage I feel I want to explore as much as I can.
Mhm.
And everything is an experience at the end of the day, whether good, bad, or ugly. So yeah.
Amazing. And in your current role, have you, is this set for a set period of time, or can you stay in this role as long as you would like?
I would say I can stay in this role for as long as I would like, because there are many different projects,
Mhm.
and being in the machine integration team gives me that opportunity to see exactly what the machine needs.
Mhm.
Which, if you're at a systems level, you go very deep into one things. For example, you're just looking at hoses. If those who don't know what hoses are, I didn't know 6 years ago. So there's like just pipes. So if you're just designing pipes, all you're thinking about are pipes all day. But if you're in the machine integration team, you see pipes, electrical things, fabricated parts, welded parts, engineering value chain. So looking at cost, quality, velocity, and it's a whole package. So I think I'm quite lucky that way.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you get a lot of variety in your role. And that's a really interesting journey. So we're just going to kind of go back a couple of steps, Rhea, before I come over to meet Sasha and just talk about the placements, because you were talking about the value they gave you in terms of telling you where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do. So can you just give us a brief overview about what you learned from the placement opportunities that you undertook?
So I was design slash test slash marketing slash everything at a company called Bosch. So I was ripping apart a lot of their products and doing competitor benchmarking in garden tools.
Mhm.
And from my perspective, I think placement here is an absolute must. Not only will it improve your employability score, that matters, but more importantly, it gives you an insight before you even graduate from university. And that's so powerful. Imagine going after you graduated, going into an industry and a fresh workplace, and you don't know the business, you don't know if you're in that one role, that's all you know. But having that placement here gives you that variety of experience, and then when you go back into university for your final year, things just start clicking, and
Mhm.
it's just incredible. So I don't think I would have got my job at Caterpillar if I hadn't gone to the placement year. That's just my honest opinion.
Thank you, Shreya. No, I think it's something, again, we come back to week on week on week with these webinars, is the importance of trying to get some sort of relevant work experience, whether that's a summer internship or a year-long placement, because it gives you so much context for the work that you're doing at university when you go back to that final year. And like we touched upon at the beginning of the webinar with Lauren, the placements at Caterpillar could even return as graduates, and you could even go to your final year with that role already secured, which also takes so much pressure off. So yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much, Freya. Sasha, I'm going to come over to you now and meet you. So you are a placement student at Perkins. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I studied aerospace engineering, or I am studying aerospace engineering at the University of Manchester. I'm Swiss, grew up in Switzerland, decided to move to the UK for the what I felt were better educational opportunities in engineering. And then throughout the course of my degree and doing engineering at university, I sort of figured, well, the plane stuff isn't maybe for me, so maybe I'll move over to construction equipment and big mining machines. And I ended up here at Caterpillar.
Amazing. And what's your current role at Perkins?
So I'm a placement engineer on the 2x6 month rotation scheme. Currently, I work in a team called the Performance System Integration Team. And so we work on, well, we work on a lot of things. Mainly, we work on the simulation side of engine performance. It's kind of in the name. So if other people are running the tests on the engine, we are simulating those tests to try and correlate our simulations or correlate our models to those tests to make sure we can then use those to develop new engines and future technologies. And then we also develop the control systems for an engine. So how the engine knows what to do, basically. And yeah, so I'm in Peterborough, so I'm at Perkins Engines. So it's only engines for me.
Only engines. It sounds like you get a lot of involvement with those engines, though, from everything you just said, which goes totally over my head all the time when we talk about these technical things. So this is your first 6 month rotation. So when will you move on to the second rotation?
I think I'll be starting in the first week of January is when I'll be moving, or end of
Okay.
December sort of time.
So you've got a couple of months left in your current role, and then you'll be moving on. And how does that transition work? Do you have any input as to where your second rotation will be, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I have a placement manager here, and I've been talking to him a lot about what I'd like to do, where I'd like to go, and what sort of skills I'd like to develop in my next rotation. I know that even without your input, they try and diversify the placements you do or the rotations you do, which is the same for the placement of the grad scheme. So I'm in quite a simulation heavy side of the business. And then I've asked to be on a more design engineering side, and they've been listening to me and telling me that, yeah, they're going to do that. And I've also been talking to a lot of the other placement students to try and figure out like exactly which team seems the most interesting to me, and sort of talking about that to my manager. And then another thing that's very helpful is that the Young Professionals, which is one of the employee resource groups here, they have sort of monthly meetings where people present their own rotations. And that gives you really good insight into what you actually get to do as a placement or a graduate in different teams.
Amazing. That sounds really good. That's one of the things that when you started talking to the other placement students, it sounds like you've got a really nice community there of everyone who's doing a placement, and you can kind of lean on them to find out where you might want to go next. So is that something that you do quite regularly, sort of meet up with them or talk to them?
Yeah, so we all have lunch together. We all sit at the same table. My office is split between many different teams actually. So there's like 4 or 5 of us in the same room. So we all go grab lunch together and we chit chat. There's a lunchtime chess club that we go to together sometimes, and we go do stuff after work as well. So it's really good fun.
That's amazing. And I think that's really nice to hear for our audience as well that are thinking about going to a placement, because it can seem a bit daunting, especially if you're moving to a new location. But knowing that you're going to have people in the same boat and you've kind of got that ready-made friendship group is really nice. So that's lovely to hear. Sasha, before we move on, I know you've only been in the role a few months, but so far, can you tell me sort of some of the things that you've picked up that you felt have been really beneficial during your placement year so far?
I've learned so much already. It's only been 3 months. Yeah, it's like sort of hard to make a whole list, but I've been working on simulations, so I've learned to use new tools. So at university, I got taught MATLAB. We use MATLAB here at work, but I've used new tools that I've never used before. I got great insight into how like industry standard engine simulation works using MATLAB. I get to do like MATLAB training courses. I get to do go to like MATLAB events, or MATLAB comes to talk to us. So MATLAB's been a big part of my job.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But then also within the company, there's regular like lecture sessions and training sessions. So every couple of weeks or so, someone who's an expert in their field is giving like a 1-hour talk about what they do or something new we're developing. So I've learned a lot through going to those. And then sometimes it's not something new, it's like the basics for everyone to understand.
Yeah.
So it's like a in-work lesson kind of. So yeah, and then Caterpillar has so many resources available to learn things, like subscriptions to like different databases and websites, so much training material. It's kind of like there's almost too much training.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. And I know training development is such an important part of our students kind of thinking when they're looking at different organizations that they might want to apply to. And, you know, just everything that you've touched on there in 3 months that you've had access to is absolutely incredible. So that's really, really good to hear. And we're going to come back and find out a little bit more about some of the key projects that you've done so far and the work that you've been involved in. But I know Carla wants to jump in now.
Yes, I do. Thanks very much for that, Soph, and thanks everybody so far. So I feel like there was a bit of a ... moment earlier on when we were speaking to Sadia about what she's been up to so far. So we're going to make this make sense now. So we kind of wanted to split this part of the webinar off from what Sadia does from her graduate scheme point of view, because this opportunity isn't open to everybody. But Sadia has got a really amazing opportunity at the moment called the Marketing Training Class, or the MTC. And this is why Sadia is currently tuning in from Geneva. Thanks everybody for going ooh with me. Thanks, sir. You missed your cue. So Sadia, tell everybody who's watching a little bit more about the MTC. So what you get up to and what this opportunity means to you.
Thank you so much. So it's basically an opportunity to learn about the business, more so on a global scale. It's covering the EAME region, so Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And it's a course where there's 21 people this year from all over those regions, and we all come together and we're all taught about the business.
Yeah.
And we're taught soft skills, we're taught about emotional intelligence, we're taught crucial conversation skills, all the soft skills necessary to work in the workplace. But then we also learn about the entire business, all through the verticals and the horizontals. We also have to complete a business case, and then you also have the opportunity to do customer visits. So it's really giving you like the overall full picture of what Caterpillar has to offer. And it's amazing because we started off in Malaga for 3 weeks. We've been in Geneva for 6 weeks. Then we're heading to Ivory Coast next week. And it's, your network expands like crazy. These are people that you are now connected with all across the world whilst learning about the business. And it's just a once in a lifetime experience. And yeah, I'm so grateful.
Absolutely once in a lifetime experience. I mean, I don't like leaving Yorkshire, but I think I would leave Yorkshire to go on that MTC, to be perfectly honest with
Well,
you.
that is big words, Carla.
I know, and it is recorded. You've got it live. So Sadia, staying with you. So how does this kind of fit into your graduate scheme then? How do you kind of do both?
So it kind of tied in nicely in terms of it was like a 6-month rotation, and then this trip happened to be like 10 weeks in the middle. So I managed to complete my 2nd rotation, go on this trip, and then when I go back, I will go on to my 3rd rotation. And I've made it so that my 3rd rotation really ties into all of the Caterpillar related stuff I've learned, because the first 2 were more Perkins heavy in terms of the work I was doing.
Yeah. So do you get to kind of choose your rotations then? So you've got your future planned out now, haven't you? You're doing this MTC and then you're coming back on a rotation that you've already planned out. So how do you kind of you've all spoken about the opportunities that are open to you and how flexible Caterpillar is, but how did you go about choosing that next rotation?
I think I tried to be more strategic because I knew I was going to do a Caterpillar based the MTC course is about the Caterpillar brand, and we touch on Perkins and the other companies that are owned by Caterpillar. So I thought it makes sense. I can like utilize and put into practice everything I've learned on a theoretical level when I go back into a team that serves on the cat side of the business.
Yeah. Has it been a bit daunting though, doing all the traveling and getting to meet new people, new brands?
I think beforehand I didn't know what to expect. Like I'd never been to Ivory Coast, I'd never been to Switzerland before, and I was like, oh, I didn't know what to go in with. And I think because I didn't have any expectations, it's been even better. I just went in with a blank slate, and it's been the most amazing experience ever. And the people that are on this course, they're so friendly. Everybody has, everyone's just so nice. I cannot rave about it enough.
And Sadia, before sorry to interrupt you, Carla, if you're going to say something else, how did you get to be on this course? How did that work?
So I think there were 2 grads in the year above me who joined the Perkins grad scheme, and I think they were given the opportunity to go on the MTC, and then it's kind of become like a recurring thing if the opportunity is available. So I was lucky that the opportunity became available again this year, so I kind of followed in the footsteps of my predecessors.
And is it all other graduates that are on the course with you, or is it all various levels of people at Caterpillar and Perkins?
So interestingly enough, the MTC is actually for like a separate role. And yeah, but I think in terms of me being on the grad scheme, I think it was a sideways opportunity that I was allowed to step into, and then I'll come back into continuing my grad scheme.
Lovely.
Can you just imagine it when you're old? It's like, oh, Dave, you travelled around the world, and in the space of what 10 weeks,
yeah.
You'll have dots all over the globe. You need to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for that insight. I mean, it sounds like an absolute fantastic opportunity. You've been really lucky to have it, but obviously you've earned it as well, Sadia. So well done. And I think so. If we're going to go back to projects.
We are indeed. So Shreya, I'm going to come back to you. I know you gave us a very whistle-stop tour sort of through your graduate scheme and life so far at Caterpillar. But are there any kind of key projects that you can pick out and tell us a little bit more detail about, what you've been doing at your time?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess all businesses, whether it's Caterpillar, Gradcracker, or any new business that you're starting will need data. And I feel from my own experience and going through all the different rotations that I have been on, data science, data analytics, these three things are the key skills in this century. Regardless if you're an engineer or not, you will be working with data. So I ended up going into one of the departments in supply chain. And when I went in, I thought, okay, this seems a bit old school. Can I revamp it? And so the problem was they were using quite an old system to send out email communication. So for example, you are writing something and you need to send it out to 50 people, but you want per different project it goes to different other people. So I used a tool called Power Automate, which I learned from scratch during that particular rotation, and I automated the entire system. So I saved the business 25 minutes of time per engineering change, which significantly adds up. So that was one big project I did. The other was I was analyzing different costs of different brackets. So for example, you have a bracket, for example, if this is, you can't see my mug. Okay, if this is a mug, okay, if this is a mug, you need someone to supply you the mug, and in your business, you're going to pour water into it. So if you have 10 different suppliers sending you to 10 different mugs, which supplier do you choose? So we have an analysis called should cost modeling. So before I joined that team, there hadn't been any momentum on that. So the actions I took was I analyzed, I believe, 485 different brackets, their should costs, their current costs, what the current suppliers are, whether the current suppliers are reliable or not, and going forward, which supplier to either go down with or not to go down with as a business from a business perspective. Yeah, those were like two significant projects that I'm quite proud of.
So two projects that you've had, you know, you can immediately see an impact on the business as well at a
Definitely,
very
yeah.
early stage in your career.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's always lovely to hear stories
Yeah.
like that, where you can really sort of say, okay, I've come in, I've been with the business 6 months, a year, and I've had this impact from a very early stage. So that's really interesting. And just going back to the first project that you mentioned, where you said that you learned a tool from scratch, was that something that you had support on from within Caterpillar, or was that a trait? How did that work, teaching yourself that skill?
Okay. I would say I've been a bit of a self-learner all my life, and the place I go
I'm
to is
getting that
YouTube.
impression as well, Shreya.
I don't know. It's just any problem, I'll just go to YouTube, Google, or what Caterpillar does support with. It's given you access to a tool called LinkedIn Learning. Those of you don't know about LinkedIn Learning, it's an absolute minefield. If you want to learn how to record songs, to write Python code, to learn how to do Power Automate, go to LinkedIn Learning. So Caterpillar gives you free access to LinkedIn Learning, and I knew that because I was looking at their learning resources. So when I went in, I had actually, a colleague of mine had told me that, okay, there is this tool that you can automate things with. So I'd heard of it. I knew about its capability, but I had never used it. So went into the supply chain department, and then I was thinking of, oh my God, this is so manual. Why can't we automate it? And then I started researching, started teaching myself. And yeah, hope that answers your question.
No, that's great. And I think this is a good thing to kind of point out as well, that there's so much that Caterpillar will give you, but there's also that element of, you know, teaching yourself and taking the initiative to do things off your own bat, which it sounds like all of you have been doing. And I think it's really good that you've got access to kind of additional resources where you can go off, but also that you've got the freedom to be able to say, do you know what, this isn't the right way to do this. I can think of something better, and then take the initiative to be able to see that all the way through. So some really good examples there, Shreya. Sasha, I'm going to come back to you just to kind of touch upon what you've been doing so far. So I know you said only been with the business 3 months, but it sounds like in those 3 months you've done quite a lot. So give us a little bit of an overview about what you've done so far.
Oh, can't hear you, Sasha.
Sasha, I can't hear you for some reason. So your sound seems to have gone.
Oh,
there you are.
Hello?
It's come back now.
Okay. Well, I haven't touched anything, so that's just getting
that's
lucky.
weird.
Just lean forward, we can hear you now.
Yeah. So I think the first thing you do in every rotation is a little bit of training. So I spent, the first 2 or 3 weeks working on some training tasks that had already been prepared. So one of the things you get here in Peterborough is because there's such a long and robust history of having grads and placements, there's training material for them. So you get to sort of work on a real task and understand how it works before you actually get to do something that has too much impact and pressure on you, and learn the tools. So that's the first thing I did. And then I got started right away working on process improvement tasks. So process improvements are how we make our business better at doing things. And so my team works on a lot of those as we develop future technologies. And I work directly with a guy called Tom on his task to make turbocharger maps better. So a modern engine runs on hundreds of maps, and these historically are, built with tools and then calibrated, sometimes manually, and a lot of work goes into them. So we want to spend a lot of time making sure they're really good at operating in all different kinds of conditions, and also that we can tune them with the least amount of effort. So that's kind of the area I've been working in. Recently, over the past month or so, I've been working on developing the map for a valve on the engine for the turbocharger wastegate, which prevents the turbocharger from exploding when things go wrong.
Okay, that sounds like a good thing to do.
That's important.
Yeah.
Well, if I do it wrong, we're in trouble. But
we'll all know who to blame then.
There's a no blame culture at Caterpillar, so no one.
Oh, there we go.
No, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on the calibration of that. And the reason you need to calibrate that is because we use the area of the valve in a lot of our calculations and our models, but we only receive a position value from the engine, and we need to translate that position value into an actual area we get to use in our calculations, in our simulations. And then making sure that what our simulations are doing is consistent with what we see on the test bed, we observe when we're actually running the engine. So that means taking data, using that data, building this map, running simulations to verify the map, iterating on the simulation, so updating the maps with new data and stuff like that. And then at the end of the day, it's being able to demonstrate that you follow the robust process, that you've taken all the correct and necessary steps, that you haven't missed something along the way. Just proving that it works. That's not easy. You got to make that yourself, and using all the tools at your disposal to do that. Part of the process improvement side is we want to work on the way we do these calibrations. So can we use a smaller, simpler model and make it run faster? Can we automate it? So I've been working on the calibration. Right now I'm going to work on making it a more robust process, because I think it's very important. And yeah, this is something that is possibly, or is going to be on the test bed soon. So being able to work on something that seems so small, like it's just a turbocharger wastegate, it's one calibration out of hundreds, but it's kind of very rewarding to feel that it's going to go to the test bed, that it's gonna actually do something.
Amazing. Yeah. And it goes back to what we were saying before, Shreya, these things that you're working on are going to have real business impacts very early on. And I was just thinking when you were talking, you were explaining everything you're doing, which, to be totally honest, I don't understand the technical side of things, but I imagine our audience is sitting here thinking, wow, that is 3 months into an industrial placement. And these are all the amazing things and the variety of different things that you've been involved in so far on one. I know you say it's only one small calibration or calculation within hundreds, but the amount of detail and thought and work that needs to go into that one small element is amazing. And for somebody from an engineering background, I can imagine it's just ticking every single one of those boxes. So that's been really, really interesting to listen to, Sasha, and amazing for just sort of 3 months. And I imagine your next placement, if you do go into the design engineering, will give you a whole other new set of skills that you're able to then take back to your university career, and just think how what you've done so far and what you're going to do is then going to impact that final year of university and your work when you go back. So yeah, really, really interesting. Before I hand back to Carla, I'm just going to quickly shoot back to Sadia and just hear about, a little bit more about what you've been doing in those first couple of rotations, and if there's any sort of projects that stand out to you before we hear about how we get the job.
So I think one of the main projects I worked on in my first rotation was just looking at the battery chemistries that exist in the market, because Perkins offer battery solutions. So it was looking at like competitors, looking at what technologies exist, what like the forecasts are going to look like, and understanding the trends of where like the direction is going in terms of what battery chemistries we could potentially adopt in the future. So that worked out perfectly because it was partially technical, but I managed to make it sales and marketing-y because I managed to present my findings back to one of like the engineering teams. So that was really, really cool. And then in my second rotation, again, it was a more of a competitive analysis study. So focusing specifically on one of our products and comparing it to what the competitors are doing, just the difference in our offerings, quite high level, but again, because it was engine related, I managed to go into the technical bits again and touch on that. So it really tied in together quite nicely, where I managed to do a bit of technical, but sales and marketing, and I was learning a lot of marketing terminology along the way as well, and how we create our value proposition and how we market ourselves as being leaders of like engine providers, etc. So those are, I think, two of the biggest projects that I worked on, and I really, really enjoyed them.
Amazing. And I love that you've been able to keep that technical element as well alongside the kind of sales and marketing side of things. And I think that's something nice to kind of mention to our audience. You know, just because you're coming from an engineering background, there's still so many other roles that you'll really be able to utilize those skills. If you wanted to go down the sales and marketing route or a more commercial route, those skills are still really, really important, especially to a business like Caterpillar, where it is, you know, so technical. So that's really, really great to hear, Sadia. Thank you very much. Carla, I'm going to hand back to you so you can hear we can hear all about getting the role.
Thank you very much. So thanks everybody for the webinar so far. Lauren, I'm going to come back to you. So with the people on the panel have talked about all their experiences. So talk to me a little bit more about the application process. When a student goes onto the Caterpillar Hub on Gradcracker, clicks apply, what are the next stages?
Yes, so all of our roles are live and posted now on Gradcracker. You can find them through the Caterpillar Hub on Gradcracker's website. So as you mentioned earlier, Carla, there are some roles that close on the 17th of November, and there are some roles that close on the 1st of December. So when you are looking through those adverts, just make sure you take note of that date and you get your application in before the deadline date. So in terms of the application process, initial application is just a CV. Attach a cover letter if you wish to do so as well, just to give us a bit more information on what you're interested in and what you're passionate about. You will be asked around 5 or 6 questions when you apply to the scheme, but nothing to worry about. They're really generic. It's just for us to get to know kind of what you're studying, what year you graduate, what locations you'd be willing to consider, and what you're on target to achieve in terms of your classification. So really simple questions and a really simple application. Given you meet the essential criteria listed in the advert, we will send you a link to attend a pre-recorded video interview. So upon receiving that link, you have 7 days to submit your responses. There's around 5 questions within that video interview, but again, it just allows us to get to know you a bit better, kind of what your motivational fit is for the role, what you're passionate about, and examples of times when you may have demonstrated certain competencies such as teamwork or using your initiative. So from that video interview stage, we will then do shortlisting to determine which candidates we invite to an on-site assessment centre. The assessment centre process is quite lengthy, so they will start in January next year and they will be running up until May next year, just because of the vast amount of roles that we have available. But what I will say is when you're looking at the individual adverts, the assessment centre date will be listed on that advert for each individual role. So please make a note of that assessment centre date. It'll give you a good indication of when we will be in touch with you, and try to keep that date free as well if you are successful onto that stage. But in terms of the assessment centre itself, so that's the final stage of the process. You will undergo a group task, an individual pre-prepared presentation, and an individual interview as well. but we try to make it fun, relaxed. We want you to do your best, and we try to create an environment that really makes you feel comfortable and makes you show us your best self. You'll also undergo a site tour on that day, and you'll get to meet some of our current placement and graduate students just to get their experience too. So it is a long day. It is quite intense in terms of the assessments that you'll go through. But like I said, we try to make it really, really relaxed. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you choose Caterpillar as a employer of choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And through the years, Lauren, and I know you've mentioned at the beginning that you've actually been through the process yourself. So what kind of key hints and tips would you give students applying and going through the individual stages of the Caterpillar application process?
So I'll probably break this up into the 2 stages. So if you meet the essential criteria in your application, you'll be invited to the video interview. In terms of the video interview part of the process, I know it's difficult when you're talking to your laptop, but a good aspect of our video interviews is there's no time pressure in terms of you get your question, you've got 30 seconds to think of your answer, and then you have to answer it straight away. So essentially, you have 7 days upon receiving that link to go away, do a bit of research, practice and prepare. And again, that's really just wanting us to let you perform to your best ability. So in that video interview, like I said, do your research on the company, try to find something that sets you aside from another candidate who's also looking at our website and on our Gradcracker hub. But try and do your research, especially on the location that you've applied to as well, to get an insight into what they do at that site. And really try and get your passion across in that video interview. What interested you to your degree discipline in the first place? Was it an experience that you've had, a role model? Really try and get that passion across in that video interview. So when we're watching those back, we really see that you're passionate about what you do. And then as well on the video interview, there will be some questions that ask you to demonstrate examples of when you've used a certain behaviour. So think of examples throughout university, part-time work, sports teams, hobbies, where you've demonstrated maybe working as part of a team, or when you've had to have really good communication skills. So try and think of some examples that you can use in your video interview.
Yeah.
And then moving on to the assessment centre. So I think I've touched on this slightly, but you will undergo a few assessments, but it sounds quite cliche. Just be yourself. We want you to be yourself. We want you to feel comfortable, and we want you to perform to your best ability. So I think it very much is a two-way street in terms of we are interviewing you to see if you're suitable for the role, but you're also seeing what it's like to work for Caterpillar and whether that role is something that's suitable for you. So be yourself, get involved as much as you can, and just enjoy it really. So yeah.
Definitely, and we've definitely introduced the people who are watching this webinar as well to 3/4/4, including you, Lauren, in this role models who work at Caterpillar and Perkins. I think you've just done an amazing job, had an amazing career so far. So Lauren, you just touched on a couple of things there that I want to delve into a little bit more. So you mentioned about researching the locations. You know, sometimes students will have to relocate into these opportunities. What help advice is given from Caterpillar when the students, or if the students do need to relocate?
Yeah, so like we've touched on before, we do have a young professionals network within Caterpillar. So that's made up of current placement students and current graduate students, as well as those employers that are kind of just starting off in their career. So I think it's really beneficial in having that network to help bridge the gap between university and employment. So those young professional networks really help in welcoming students that may have had to relocate for their placement or their graduate scheme, just being someone that they can relate to, that they can be supported by in terms of social events. They also do a lot of professional networking events, charity work. So it is nice just to have that network of people already established at the company that you can join if you are successful into one of our schemes.
Yeah, so there's lots of guidance and support there as well. And just a top tip from Gradcracker, you know, Lauren mentioned key dates about the assessment centres. So what you can do on Gradcracker, if you decide to register, is save jobs to your job diary as well. So that means you'll automatically have those jobs saved there with all of the important details about the location and also the assessment centre dates as well. So just a top tip from us that you can go and do that when you before you apply or whilst you are applying. And Lauren, I've got 2 questions from students now that I feel like you've covered one off, but I just want to double check my answer here. So initially we've got a question from Peter at Durham University who asks, what is the best quality a candidate can have? If you had to choose one, I bet there's lists.
I'd say having a good attitude.
Yeah.
So we know that you've got a certain level of technical competence based on the degree that you're studying at university. And don't get me wrong, we do ask some technical questions as part of our interview process, but we're really looking for students that have got a good attitude. They're really passionate about what they do and their interest in engineering, and they've got a real willingness to learn. So we do look at competencies like teamwork, using your own initiative, communication skills, but having a good attitude and being passionate about what you do will stand you in good stead throughout the process.
Yeah, and life in general, I think, having a good attitude. Thank you very much for that, Lauren. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of move over to you, Sadia, if this is okay. And I know you use Gradcracker a lot whilst you were applying to the Caterpillar opportunity. So what was it about the Caterpillar Hub on Gradcracker that you thought, oh, I really want to join them as a company? And how did you use Gradcracker to do your research?
I think well, I've been loyal to Gradcracker for a long time. I think this dates back to my placement year. And I think, funnily enough, my sister, when she was at university, she was the one who said, oh, Gradcracker's a good place. And I think my older sister also said the same thing. So it's honestly by word of mouth. It's, oh, have you used Gradcracker? Okay, yeah, I'll give it a go. And I think it's probably the most comprehensive website in terms of trying to find a grad scheme or even a placement year that suits what you're looking for. I think the filtration options are so helpful, especially in terms of like the grade, the industry, what even down to the type of engineering. I think that really helped me filter exactly what I was looking for. So yeah, I think I'd been using it for so many years that it felt so natural to be like, oh, I'll just check what's on Gradcracker, see if there's any cool opportunities going. But I think the filtration process really helped me figure out exactly what I was looking for, which really helped.
Yeah, definitely. Is it inappropriate to say I could kiss you? It is, I'm sorry, but I still could. But I think, yes, Sadia's made a really valid point there. So you can really, really filter down. And this is the thing about Gradcracker, because we are a STEM website, you can specifically find your discipline, so mechanical engineer, and then look at all of the opportunities. And like, you know, Sadia's experience so far, if you're a mechanical engineer and you might not want to stay within mechanical engineering, you don't have to. There's lots and lots of opportunities out there. So, you know, like sales and marketing at Caterpillar as well that you can apply for. And so, yes, make sure you use Gradcracker whilst applying for your placement and graduate opportunities. And so thank you very much for that, Sadia. So now what we're going to do is, I'm just conscious of time, but I kind of want to get some hints and tips from you, Lauren, if this is okay. So students who are watching the webinar will have mentioned that they've watched the webinar as part of their application. Another nod, hint and tip there. So Lauren, when the students do start, how can they be successful and what's on offer for them?
Yeah, so I think, is that in terms of starting the actual scheme?
Yes, please, Willow.
Yeah. So typically when you start with us, you will undergo an induction. So just to kind of get introduced to the business, network with colleagues, teams that you're going to be working alongside, and other placement or graduate students as well. So I think a key part of that process is just to be really sort of inquisitive, ask a lot of questions. No question is a silly question. So you will be doing a lot of learning and taking on a lot of information when you first start with us. And then I think as you go throughout your placement or graduate scheme, there are mentors and your managers are there to support you and guide you through those schemes, but really seek out your own opportunities. I think you've heard from all of the students on this call that they really sort out their own opportunities and in working in projects. They were working with other teams within the business and really seeing what they could do to make a difference and make a change. So you only get out of it as much as you put into it. So I think just really challenging yourself, and sometimes being outside your comfort zone is a good thing. So yeah, just kind of take on as much as you can, and you will learn so much.
Yeah, and enjoy it. You know, you don't get this experience again, so definitely go into it with an open mind, ask loads of questions, and do your networking and meet new people. So yes, I'd like to say thank you very much, Caterpillar. I told you at the beginning, everybody who's watching, it was going to be a good one. So thank you very much. Your stories have been absolutely amazing. And kind of Lauren is just testament to the fact that she's been through the whole process as well, and she's doing an amazing job in the early careers team as well. So thank you very much for that, Lauren. Don't forget, this webinar will be live on the Caterpillar Hub as from tomorrow, and we'll also break it down into bite-sized chunks as well. I don't know how we're going to do this because there's been so many amazing little snippets that I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but there's going to be a lot. So make sure you're going to go and have a look at those, and make sure you re-watch when you're getting your application together as well, because we've given you loads and loads of hints and tips about how you can be successful. So look at the closing dates as well, like we've mentioned. So some are closing, and the grads are closing on the 17th of November. The placements are closing on the 1st of December. So get your applications in. If a degree apprenticeship is something that you want to look towards doing, follow Caterpillar on Gradcracker as well, and they'll be open in the new year, and then you'll be alerted when they do open with an email and push notification. So thanks, guys. It's been amazing. Join me in Soph next Thursday at 2 o'clock, where we're joined by engineering consultancy firm AECOM. But for now, good luck, get your applications in, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.